All right, I'm Will. This is Cover Minutes, and I have with me here today
Nabil,
Paran.
And I don't know if anyone's been following some of the controversy right now with board game rankings. We thought we'd kind of throw our 2 cents in, or our 1 minute's worth in, into the ring, but we want to also take the discussion a little farther than just what's happening and just talk, a little bit about rankings overall. We've done a little bit of ranking videos on the channel, not a lot, but we'll probably do more in the future. But I just want to kind of preface this with a small discussion on why rankings are not a good thing necessarily for the hobby, or are they a good thing? You guys have any thoughts on that?
I can chip in. So rankings are good, but they're so subjective that someone's ranking might not necessarily jive with depending on people's tastes. And the BGG ranking specifically is a whole nother beast, because this is probably where we might get into that conversation where how they're weighted, and what games are ranked right at the top versus there's some really, really good games that are not even in the top 100 that are on some of our top 10s, Champions of Midgard, for example. I think
it used to be in the top
100, but now it's no longer there. But it's my favorite game of all time. So I think it's transitioned.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. But things like that. So rankings are good to guide the new gamers, but when they rely on something like a BGG rankings, and if you're new to the hobby and you go out and pick Gloomhaven, that you're probably not going to have the best experience, right? Because if you're a fresh gamer and you're like, oh my god, what is this board game? And then that might turn you off.
Don't take our word for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rankings are. You have to take them with a very large grain of salt.
Very large.
For all the reasons that Ferran just said, they're very subjective. And, what somebody might rate a 10, somebody else might rate a 1. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason.
Yeah. As
we will discuss shortly, I'm sure. But, when I'm looking at a new game, I'll take a look at the ranking on BGG, like the rating overall. But I don't really let it influence my decision as to whether or not to pursue the game further or not. I go more by, what's the weight and what are the mechanisms? Mm-hmm. And even the weight rating itself is... It can be arbitrary sometimes too, but it gives you a rough idea of okay, is this kind of in my wheelhouse or not?
Yeah. So let's kind of wind the clock back a little bit. About a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, early 2023. If you're watching this in the future, I guess I don't think there's any single incident that sparked it.
Yeah, I can't.
But it seems because I tried checking forums and Reddit and all this stuff, and nothing really started it. But it seemed like people wanted a shift in the top 10 or top 100 on Board Game Geek. Yep. So Board Game Geek is essentially, if you don't know, it's like the Wikipedia of board games. There's really nothing like it as a resource for board gamers. Yep. But they have a ranking, and we'll get into a little bit about how they rank things in a minute. But they have a ranking of the highest rated games. And Gloomhaven, which is a very large campaign-style game, fairly expensive, very involved. It was number 1 for at least a couple of years. While, yeah. And then its sequel, Frosthaven, came out, and maybe that's what sparked it, was people were pulling it down for Frosthaven or something. But so it was number 1, and gamers started to spam rate it as a 1, and start to mass up rank, so give 10s to the next few games below it to try to shift it down. Yeah. Now, I'll see if I can put up some screenshots and whatnot, but there are whole sections of, you can actually go through the rankings on BGG and just scroll back and look at the ratings. Oh, wow. And you'll see a good 1,000 or more almost in a row of people who just rate it once.
Wow. Without having played it.
Well, probably without having played it. Likely not. I mean, you can't say that for sure. But sometimes in some cases, they were reviewers or people leaving a ranking who are not, were brand new accounts, but not very often. I checked, was this a spamming thing happening? But when you look back, and I randomly opened a couple dozen different users, and they were all people who had an account for 4 or more years and just decided to start spamming it as a 1. And if then I went even further and looked at some of how they rank games in general, and some of them had never ranked anything before until they ranked Gloomhaven a 1.
Okay.
But some of them had ranked a lot, so it was a real mixture of stuff. And same thing vice versa. You go back to what had then become, or now at the point of this filming, the number 1 game, which is Brass Birmingham.
Okay.
It was the same deal, but in reverse. Yeah. People rating it 10s who had maybe never rated very much before or rated tons of stuff. But all of a sudden, it was being spammed at 10.
Yeah. So board gaming, I think, for that reason, it's becoming slightly more of a toxic hobby, where people are not ranking games because of how they enjoy them, but more because of other reasons. Like if Kickstarter, for example, does not ship their game exactly on the day that they specified when they were backing it, they will give it a 1 because it's delayed by, a year or 2. And then they'll go out and look at other games of that designer, and then they'll probably spam those ratings. And so it's not a fair indication of the game itself.
Yeah. Or worse, you'll see often big named Kickstarters getting spammed with 1s.
Yeah.
Because people will even say in the comments, saying, "Oh, we're just trying to pull down the average before launch." I think that would be considered unfair.
It's unfair
if you've never
played the game. Like, or just because it's a Marvel game and you're sick of Marvel stuff, like you'll rate it a 1 because I don't want more Marvel stuff coming out, and we'll downrate this one. That's just like, get a life. First of all, I'm sorry, but get a life. Like if this is your biggest concern, that's sad. That's my opinion personally.
Yeah, and if you want to hear the official Board Game Geek opinion, they released a video about a week or so, I think, where they actually address not some of the information that I've revealed or will reveal, but they've addressed just the community is what it is. They are blocking the spam bots and whatnot, but they're doing they're essentially allowing the community to flow as is natural within the community.
You can't control, a public website like that, to that degree that you can't police that.
They have to be. It's difficult. They do have to be impartial.
Yeah.
But how? I don't know if it's fair or if there's some way to block that or not. Review bombing is certainly something that we've seen in this day and age, whether it be movie reviews on Rotten Tomatoes.
I was just going to say,
games on Steam.
Rotten Tomatoes is a good example.
The other thing is with anything, there's always that quote unquote, that fanboy element to it. Whether it's PlayStation versus Xbox, that's such an arbitrary argument. Why do you have this, artificial loyalty to one over another, or in this case, Brass Birmingham over Gloomhaven.
No.
Why does one have to be better than the other? They're both great games to various people for various reasons.
Yeah, the people who love Brass really love Brass.
Exactly.
The people who love Gloomhaven really love.
And both of those things are fine. Why do you have to bring one of those things down to make yourself feel like, oh, my game is superior? To what end are you doing that?
And before we get too far, I think it's probably fair to say that out of certainly at this table, I really enjoy both Gloomhaven and Brass. And I think you guys are impartial or less than impartial.
Oh, I'm not impartial. I don't like either one.
I'm not a fan of Gloomhaven. I've made that clear in previous videos, but that's just my style of gaming. It does not adapt to it, but that does not mean I'm going to go out and rate it a 1 or a 2.
No, exactly.
Right? I'm not going to rate on it because, I haven't played it to a greater extent. I haven't played the full campaign, so I don't have an informed, educated opinion to place on the game for me able to influence the ratings on
At the same time, though, if you've played a game, even if you've only played it once, and your rating of that play, that's your rating.
That's my rating.
Right? So, and you're entitled to your rating. It's your opinion.
And everyone has different ways of rating things.
Exactly. Even if it's after one play, it's okay to go play a game and in your own collection on BGG, rate it whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
That's your rating of that game.
Do those ratings get counted?
They do.
They do, right? In the overall?
I believe they do.
If I play a game and then I put it in as a 9, that counts as the weight.
Okay, it's currently not that we're aware of.
Oh, okay.
So this might be a good time to kind of go over what we've figured the formula to be. And we, not as in me, but as in I've looked at numerous posts online, and people have sort of reverse engineered a little bit the formula of how Board Game Geek comes up with the final ranking, as well as the ratings numbers. And there is a certain amount of gap in there where there's probably some sort of secret sauce about what they're adding in, or how there's some suspicion that maybe they're not counting users who have not been around for very long.
Okay.
Or maybe we're counting them to a lesser extent.
Oh, so it's weighted, perhaps?
Well, potentially. But that amount is a very small variability. But the numbers that they've come up with and the way they've come up with it is apparently pretty precise. And so the numbers I have is there's a few different studies and stuff that people have kind of done, mostly based around 2020 was some of the articles I found, but there are probably more recent ones. So what Board Game Geek does is they use what's called a dummy system. So how they create the rankings is they'll look at, and I'll just come out and see the formula, maybe I'll put it on the screen. So they'll take the total ratings. So, if you rate a 7, I rate a 7.5, so on, they'll add up all those numbers. Mm-hmm. They'll add up the dummy ratings. And so what they do is they have a secret number of dummies that is based on the population of BGG. Okay. And so as the population of BGG grows, they increase the number of dummies. Mm-hmm. And each of those dummies, it has a rating of 5.5. Applied to every game. Okay. So at the time of 2020, they calculated the dummies to be about 1,450. So if you submitted a brand new game to BGG and you rated it yourself once, it would potentially have. I mean, they don't count it until it has a certain number of ratings. Right. But it would potentially have a starting rating of 5.5. 5.5
would be the base.
Yeah, but again, they won't list ratings until it has a certain number, and that way that number there's never immediately revealed.
Public, yeah. Okay.
So that is all those 5.5s. And then take that and add up like our ratings and the dummy ratings, and then divide all that by the total number of ratings between humans and dummies. And that is kind of what comes up with the overall score. So if there's if there's several thousand humans rating a game very highly, but only 1,450 dummies, the game is going to be significantly higher than 5.5, right? Whereas like the less people rate it, or even the opposite of it, if you have only a few people, I don't know what the default number is, maybe it's a couple hundred ratings before they start showing the numbers. Mm-hmm. If they're all rating at ones, the 5.5 will pull that up to that point.
To the point, so it won't show up as a 1.
So it won't show up quite just as a 1. So it's not an exact user rating. And let's look at this for reference. So BGG Top 100 at time of viewing this, I checked this morning. Brass is number 1. Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
Oh, right.
Which is another game where, because people will only play through it once, right. You physically cannot play it further because you are ripping things up in that game and writing on things. Then Gloomhaven, Ark Nova, Twilight Imperium 4, Terraforming Mars, and so on. All of which I think are games that the people who love them really love them and rate them highly. And there are a lot. So whether Gloomhaven deserved to be number 1 or not, that I think is going to be personal. But if there was no review bombings, at least at that point, Gloomhaven had enough people who bought it, played it, loved it, and rated highly that it went up to the top.
To the top rating, yeah.
Whereas Brass Birmingham, although more widely available since the reprints and I guess Brass Birmingham is a new version, but Roxley has been doing a pretty good job at making steady copies of it, but it has never had as much of a wide release, or been stocked multiple copies on shelves or get board game stores. So it's funny seeing it up to number 1 now. Is that purely because of the review bombings? Is it because people are playing it through other mediums, like online gaming, Board Game Arena or whatnot? But then again, people are playing Gloomhaven on Steam.
Yeah.
So does that
Which
count?
I do actually like. I like that better than
the physical
board game. I played it a few times, and the app is quite good. Like on Steam, I mean.
So the question is first, is there a way to fix this? Like,
I don't think so.
Does it need to be fixed?
I don't think it needs to be fixed. Like, I think you just kind of have to use your own judgment and, be an adult. And if you are interested in the game, play a game and
Evaluate it for yourself.
Evaluate it for yourself. That's my opinion anyways.
Yeah.
As the old saying goes, like, one person's trash is another person's treasure, right? So you rate something a 10, great. It's good for you. You love the game. Like, I might rate it a 1.
Yeah.
That's fine too. Who cares?
Yeah, for me, I think the ratings there, I don't hold them in super high regard, but I use them more as a guide. So I go in and I take a look, and it's like it's rated an 8 or 9. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go watch the review of it on on YouTube, and I'll see how it plays, and then I'm like, okay, that sounds like a good game that I might enjoy. I'll go pick it up. If it's a game that's a 6 or a 5, I'm less likely to look into it deeply, but I'll still, if I'm interested in the theme or the mechanics, I'll watch a video, and if I like it, I'll still go buy it. So,
it is a fact that games that are rated more highly in BGG are bought more.
Yeah,
they're bought more. There is a definite push.
Yeah, for sure. It affects sales for sure.
It does affect sales. The one thing is, I've noticed is that the bigger games not the bigger games, the games that are in the top 10, the ones that we'll just kind of mention, they're all heavy strategy Euro games. You don't see a Ticket to Ride or a Cascadia, which was a very highly regarded game, be at number in the top 5 at all. But it's a fantastic game, and I would probably play Cascadia 10 times before I play with any other of those games. Not because it's better or worse, but it's lighter. It's easier to bring to the table. I'd probably play it more times.
You physically could play it more, like 3 times.
3 times.
It takes you to play Ark Nova.
The time it takes, but that's nothing to say about Ark Nova. It's still a great game.
Both great games.
But again, why is that type of game not heavily, higher up in the BGG ranking? Yeah. So I don't know.
I think it has to do with who is more likely to go and rank games on BGG.
People,
and
strategy game,
which is great if as long as that's clear that this is a community for people who are really into board games. Yeah. It's niche. This is not something that you should refer to if you're looking for a brand new game.
Yeah, if someone's new to gaming, I wouldn't say go to the BGG top 10 and just pick any one of those. They almost need like a warning on the list. That's like here, like, before you start here, don't start here.
Go look at some like top 10 lists, recommended reviews.
How to play videos are honestly like my favorite things. I'll watch like a how to play video or like a playthrough of it, a couple of turns of that, and that gives me a really good idea as whether it's something that I actually want to play or not.
True. Yeah.
Will, you went to a board game store when you first started gaming. You told this story, right? So,
I've not told it on here.
It literally happened to you.
So again, why don't you go ahead and tell it?
And I mean, this is. I don't know if it's just because of it's a gatekeeping type thing where I mean, I hate to say that there's a lot of toxicity in the community, but maybe it's true that people
there's a lot of toxic behavior. Period.
Sure, yeah, but
like anywhere you get people with toxic behavior, it's not just.
I mean, this is true, and they're probably more vocal than the thousands of people who are perfectly decent.
Exactly.
Folks and that we would love to play with and see. But yes, I went to a board game store. This was 15 years ago. My wife and I had played a game with our friends, and we thought, hey, there's a lot of cool looking stuff in here. Let's find a couple of new games to kind of add to our collection. We were just married, didn't really own any games as a couple yet, and they recommended to us a handful of games that we bought, but some of them I would never even get into until 10 years later when I actually jumped into the hobby. Like they sat on the shelf because we tried to learn them. Yeah. Right? And they were Race to the Galaxy, which was the first one I enjoyed. My wife did not like. We had technically bought Ticket to Ride, which was not recommended, but it was the one we had played with friends. Okay. And thankfully, that was what we bought and still enjoyed as a family. We bought Battle Lore, which was the big 2-player moving minis, card-based fighting game, tons of rules.
And I'm guessing Shannon loved that one.
Shannon was not a fan of that. And the other game that we bought was recommended as like the favorite game of the people at that store was Mage Knight.
Oh man,
which is not something Which, I mean, like...
It's a fantastic game.
If I was... I mean, I love it now, but I was
not something you want to start with.
I was not ready for it. It was not something that Shannon would ever have any interest in.
No, yeah.
Now or then.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was you know, handsome, that massive rulebook and all the pieces.
Yeah.
And say, go to town.
Yeah.
You know, is definitely not... I mean, while maybe some people may have been their first game.
Sure.
They may have jumped right into that. But I was not ready for that.
No, I remember when I was first getting into the hobby, I looked at Mage Knight several times and I'm like, oh man, this is like fantasy themed. It's
cool.
like cards and like there's these cool minis and like there's this whole map you build out. And I was like, oh, this looks like it's going to be really cool.
Rules.
And then I looked more into it and I was like, whoa, let's pump the brakes here a little bit. I'm not ready for this because it's so much to learn at once.
It's a lot to learn, right? It can turn off new gamers. It's kind of risky and to Will's point, you know, kind of gatekeeping when it's like, hey, this is such a great game, you need to play this. But if you've never played board games or you know hobby games before, that could potentially turn you off and like, oh, if all games are like this, maybe it's not for me.
Or don't downvote games that people love just because
they're more simplistic.
They're more simplistic. You know, like I'm seeing some pushback about like, why not rate things like party games more highly?
Party games are not rated
just because they may be more simply designed. In some cases, in other cases, a lot of thought gets put into them.
Yeah,
you know, like I'm sure something like Codenames was not designed as a one-go
for sure
thing, and it may be a more simplistic game, but it has stood the test of time, and we know that among even people who are not regular gamers.
Some of the best games have like just really simple rule sets, but a large decision space, you know, and a lot of depth.
Yeah.
And maybe have like a 3 or 5 page rulebook.
That's it.
Or maybe not even a lot of depth. Right? Like if people love to play Exploding Kittens,
sure,
if that's their game of choice, then so be it. Like and play it, have fun, enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, I certainly had a good time playing.
And then obviously go
kids.
and spam tens repeatedly on Exploding Kittens and get it up there.
Yeah, but don't downvote.
Downvote everything on the top 10 list so you just
get that
gets up at the top.
Yeah, but don't downvote, you know, Risk or Monopoly or something unless you've actually played it.
You're looking at me because I have not rated Monopoly on B. I have not because I can't go below the zero.
You can't go,
I can't go below 0, so I can't rate.
But you've played it though.
I played way too much.
Okay, yeah, well, I was playing growing up, but that was the only thing there was to play.
And to be fair, I liked it when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. Like, if that's all you know and that's what you love, play the games you love. Like, I mean, I think that's one of our kind of mandates as a channel is like we want people to love the games they love.
Yeah.
We want to find people to explore more games and find more games to love because there's so much amazing stuff out there between games and content creators and stuff out there. There's so much fun to be had, so much good times to spend with friends. And we just, as a channel, want people to explore that and do what you love, whether it be Munchkin, which is my least preferred game. You know, if that's your favorite, find people who love it and play with them.
I mean, there's a huge community who love Munchkin. Otherwise, there wouldn't be like 10,000 sets of it.
Some people do love it, and I don't have any knock against that. If they want to play that, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I mean, you know, the rating system, you got to take it with a grain of salt. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's a rough guide to what the community at large thinks of a game.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
This community of BGG.
Of the BGG community, yeah exactly. You know.
So, how about as an alternative?
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, not just watch this channel because, well, obviously I watch this channel. But find reviewers who are, or once you start to get to know board games and know what you like in board games, find board game reviewers who are in line with your tastes.
Yeah. And don't just fast forward to the end where they give their score. Like, listen to what they have to say.
Watch
because a lot of people do that.
Yeah, but find people who agree with the same things you agree with, and that might give you a better idea of finding the games you like. Because if you know, hey, so-and-so from, you know, Dice Tower or Board Game Co. or whatever likes that game, and I like the same games they like, therefore, this game might also be
There's a better chance that I'll like it too. Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, I think we're going to close there. So thanks again for watching, and take time to play more games.
See you next time.